Hey guys, Autism Fitness founder Eric Chessen, leading the movement for movement, bringing you another edition of Autism Fitness Tuesday training. And before I get started, please definitely subscribe and share this video with someone for whom it might make a difference in their fitness or adapted physical education programming for the autism and neurodivergent population. In this edition, I am going to be talking about power exercises. Yes, force generation, and there are a couple of, as always, important considerations for integrating power exercises into the programs of our neurodivergent athletes. So what is power? Well, power is the ability to generate force and overcome inertia. What does that mean? Doing something fast with a higher amount of velocity, a quick movement that requires a lot of force behind it, a lot being a relative term. Some common power activities that we may be familiar with are jumping or sprinting, or in the Olympic lifting world, cleans and snatches, and even squat jumps as well. Not that a squat jump necessarily is an Olympic lift, but it's part of that arena, no pun intended, of exercises. Now, why do we want to incorporate power exercises for our autism and neurodivergent athletes? Simply because it looks cool? No, because that's not why we do things. We do things purposefully here in Autism Fitness with a specific focus on exercises that are going to generalize to some type of activity of daily living, either in a more widespread way or highly specified as well, because developing general pushing and pulling and squatting and hinging and carrying skills are going to generalize to a variety of different everyday living tasks. So we don't need an exact one-to-one ratio, like I'll make up something ridiculous like training hand strength for washing hands with weighted gloves. We're not going to do that. We're just going to work on washing hands because it is a technical skill. So we don't need to mimic necessarily the exact movement pattern, but we want to get the muscles that do the movement pattern stronger. In this case, when we're talking about power exercises, we want to get those muscles more powerful, being able to react and produce force efficiently and effectively with stability and with motor control, which is a big deal and often challenging for our neurodivergent athletes. But what are the ways that we exhibit or utilize power in everyday living? A couple of examples. When you have to pick up a heavy laundry or garbage bag and chuck it into the trash can, that is power. When you have to push open a heavy steel and glass reinforced door, that is power. So power actually plays a role in our everyday lives, whether we think about it or not, because sometimes we think about power in terms of just jumping around or skipping or sprinting, some of the things that I mentioned earlier. However, that is not the complete expression of power from a physical perspective, right? There are other ways of doing it. Now, let's come back to some of the challenges for our neurodivergent population when it comes to power exercises. The easiest example and probably the most prominent is jumping. Jumping is fine. Jumping is great until it is not. The issue with jumping and implementing it automatically into the programs of our athletes is, number one, many of our neurodivergent athletes do not have the underlying or prerequisite skills, not just for jumping effectively, but more so, and more importantly from a safety perspective, in landing. If you have seen some of our some individuals on the autism spectrum jump up and then land, it's very stiff-legged, like they are not flexing or bending the hips. There is limited ankle mobility, so when they're landing really hard. What is the problem with this? Well, the problem with this is safety. If the individual continues to land really hard with those straight legs, there is a lot of force that is being taken up by or being absorbed by the knees and the ankles, and that's really not going to be the best case scenario both in the short term and in the long term as far as the safety of those joints and the health of those joints. So we don't want to incorporate an exercise where we don't have a sufficient degree of motor control, and it's really hard to teach someone how to land effectively. The other part of this is we always prioritize strength and stability over power, because if we don't have underlying strength and stability being able to control the movement, then when we try to do the movement fast, it's going to break down really quickly. So we want to train squats and have that athlete meet standard, those 3 sets of 10 good repetitions below parallel, before we ever think about adding a lower body explosive activity. But doesn't that take a lot away from our options in terms of power exercises? It does, but it doesn't, because enter medicine ball throws. We have medicine ball throws, and we also have our sandbell slams, because what we train in power first for the vast majority of our athletes is going to be upper body power. But don't worry, what the lower body is getting there is stability. So here's the thing. We have this term called rooting, and what rooting means is the ability to maintain stable ground contact with the feet and with the hips while performing some type of upper body exercise. So in the case of a medicine ball push throw, the athlete is performing the movement with their hands, with their arms, with their shoulders, with their chest, with their back, and they are pushing the ball forward in this powerful expression of upper body explosivity. But what do the hips and the legs and the feet need to do? They need to stabilize. So even though this is an upper body power exercise, we're still getting stability in the low body as well. So there is a net benefit for the hips and knees and ankles and feet in being able to stabilize when the athlete is performing that upper body power exercise. Why does this have transference or generalization to activities of daily living? Because think about that example of pushing open a heavy door. You need to stabilize with your low body, with those feet, in order to be able to safely and effectively push that door open. So we're teaching low body stability at the same time we're teaching upper body power. Now, we have a few different medicine ball throws that we use in our autism fitness programming, because there are different ways that we're utilizing upper body power. And actually our third, just put up 2, but it's really 3. Our third medicine ball exercise is actually incorporating the hinge or low body power. It's an introduction to low body power in a safe and effective way. So the 3 different medicine ball throws that we use are our push throw from the chest, our overhead throw from behind the head, and then our scoop throw. We use the scoop throw because it is an introduction to the hip hinge and using the lower body for power generation without the feet needing to leave the ground. And this is an important differentiation from jumping, because again, jumping, the landing is largely uncontrollable. We're not going to coach or cue or prompt an athlete while they are mid-air to land safely, and teaching appropriate force dispensation or dispersion is a really higher order challenge, not just for the neurodivergent population, but for all populations. So jumping is typically not the issue, it's landing. And is it going to be safe? Is it going to be efficient? And is it really going to do any good for our athlete? Sure, it looks cool. Sure, it looks athletic, but are they really getting anything out of doing a lot of jumps as opposed to developing the strength and motor control with squats first, and then maybe adding some type of low body power exercise? But you don't necessarily need to do that in order for a program to be highly valuable, highly effective, and really work for that particular athlete. When we use our medicine ball throws, the athlete is developing power, they're developing those reaction skills, they're developing that force production without it having any type of safety issue for the joints at all. So we use the medicine ball throws as our introduction to power that does have generalization potential to those activities of daily living. And there are of course ways that we can modify a push throw or an overhead throw or a scoop throw that we're not able to modify with a jump or any type of low body power exercise as well. Some of the ways that we can modify a push throw, for example, are by closing the gap and getting closer to the athlete, especially if they are trepidatious or show some inhibition about catching the ball. This happens quite often. We can set the athlete up into position so that they are throwing the ball correctly, so they're using proper form and proper technique. And there are different cues that we can use in between those medicine ball throws or a sandbell slam in order for the athlete to be able to perform the exercise, again, safely and effectively, without missing something. When we're teaching jumps, we're going to miss that athlete landing because there are not enough cues that we can use in order for them to land softly so that their knees and ankles are not taking the brunt of that force once they land. That's gravity for you. The last power exercise that we use is our sandbell slam, which is a favorite of many of our athletes and our coaches because it is a full body power exercise that, again, is not placing a lot of undue stress on the joints. So taking the sandbell, raising it overhead, slamming it into the ground as hard as possible. And this is a true expression of power without sacrificing any of the safety measures at all. So the athlete takes the sandbell, they slam it into the ground, they pick it back up, and they start over again. This is a great exercise because once our athlete gets that motor pattern down of slamming the sandbell, not only are they generating more force, but we also have some grip strength component by holding on to the ends of that sandbell as well. So by just using these 4 power exercises, we can start to develop not only that upper body power that's going to be usable, again, for pushing open those heavy doors and throwing a garbage into the trash bin or throwing laundry into a top loader or even a front loader. I prefer a top loader. And also having that low body stability, that trunk stability and that leg stability, that rooting with the feet as well, that is going to transfer to some of those other activities of daily living. So rather than looking at power as, oh, the more we're jumping around and the more hectic movement we have, the better, it really is another situation, much like our strength exercises, where we want it to be dialed in, where we want the athlete to develop technical capability as opposed to getting as much movement as possible. Remember, it's all about the quality, not the quantity necessarily. And of course, we can scale up and progress the exercises. We can increase distance, we can increase weight. We can use a diagonal slam going left and right as well, without compromising for safety and effectiveness of that exercise. So power is something that we utilize early and often in our program. So typically we, if you're programming for this, we do anywhere between 2 to 4, or all 4 of our power exercises first for 2 to 3 sets of typically around 6 to maybe 10 repetitions, not more than that. And then we go into our strength work. Of course, our strength work is 99.9% of the time going to be more important than our power work, but the power work does have a place for our athletes, and that's why we include it. We also include it first because we want the athlete to be fresh and not fatigued when they're doing their power work as well. So because it's going to be more technically demanding than a lot of the other exercises. So we do power and then we do strength. So we do our 2 to 4 power exercises first in the session, and then we go into our strength exercises. An important thing to keep in mind is if an athlete has significantly compromised strength, then we may spend a lot less time on power exercises. We may just choose one, like the sandbell slam or the push throw, and then move on to our strength exercises. Equally important, if the athlete has a profile where they get frequently dysregulated, particularly towards the latter half of the session, we don't want to spend the majority of our training time with power exercises without accounting for the fact that strength is going to be the most important set of exercises in their program. So that gets into the program design component of it, but it's important to keep that in mind, that we don't need that much time in power, but they're important enough exercises that we want to include them for our athletes. And as always, there is a right way to implement and incorporate and introduce and coach these movements, and that is why We have the Autism Fitness Pro Certification. So if you are interested anywhere in the world in moving forward with delivering outstanding, highly meaningful and effective fitness programs for the autism and neurodivergent population of any age or ability level, head on over to autismfitness.com. You can download the course syllabus and learn all about the pro, expert, and master level courses, and then join me or one of our master level pros for your full day hands-on practical, where you get the training, education, and practice you need to provide the best possible outcomes for those in your community. I'd love to know what you think. Leave comments below. How do you incorporate power into your fitness programs for your autism and neurodivergent life skill athletes? And if there's a topic you'd like me to cover in a future edition of Autism Fitness Tuesday training, drop this into the comments as well. The comments help the algorithm. That's just the way it is. Thanks for watching. I'm Autism Fitness founder Eric Chessen, leading the movement for movement, and I'll see you again next time.